My parents stole my college fund, and their secret destroyed my future. Imagine working hard your whole life, believing your future is safe, only to find out your own parents stole it from you. Imagine spending your whole life believing your parents wanted the best for you, only to discover that the very people who raised you had secretly sabotaged your future. That's exactly what happened to me when I found out my college fund, the one I had trusted them to protect, was gone. When I was a kid, my parents often told me how important education was. They would brag to their friends that their child would go to a great university one day. They even reassured me that, unlike many kids, I wouldn't have to worry about loans or working multiple jobs while studying. "You just focus on your grades," my father used to say. "We've got a college fund for you." For years, I believed them. I imagined myself walking through the gates of a big campus, free from the crushing debt my friends were terrified of. I thought I was one of the lucky ones. But luck has a cruel way of turning into betrayal. It all started a few months before high school graduation. I was sitting at the dining table, filling out college applications, when I asked my mom how much was in my college account. I wasn't worried, just curious. She froze. Not the, "I forgot the password to the online banking app," kind of freeze. No, this was different. Her smile stiffened, her eyes darted to my dad, and suddenly the room felt cold. "Oh, don't worry about that," she said, waving her hand. "We'll take care of everything." But I did worry. For weeks, every time I brought it up, they brushed me off. Finally, after pressing harder, my dad admitted something that made my stomach drop. "There's no fund anymore," he muttered. At first, I didn't understand. "What do you mean there's no fund? That account was supposed to be untouchable. My grandparents had contributed to it when I was little. My parents had bragged about how much it had grown. And now nothing?" When I demanded answers, the excuses came pouring out. We needed it to pay off the mortgage. There were medical bills. Life got expensive. They made it sound like it was all for the good of the family. But the more I dug, the uglier the truth became. I saw credit card statements, vacations to resorts I had never been invited to, expensive furniture, a new car my mom bought because she deserved it. They hadn't just used the money for survival. They had spent my future on luxury. I can't even describe the rage and heartbreak I felt. Imagine being 17, standing in front of your parents, the people who taught you to save, to be responsible, and realizing they had lied for years. I yelled. I cried. My father shouted back that I was ungrateful. My mom accused me of being selfish for caring more about money than family. But it wasn't about the money. It was about trust. That fund wasn't just dollars in a bank account. It was the promise of a future. And they had stolen it from me. College acceptance letters started arriving. I should have been excited, but all I felt was panic. Every letter reminded me that the dream was slipping away. I worked 2 part-time jobs that summer. I applied for scholarships, financial aid, anything I could find. Some schools offered partial help, but nowhere near enough. One night, I overheard my parents telling relatives that I decided not to go to college yet because I wanted to take a gap year. They spun the story to save face, while I lay in my room, staring at acceptance letters I couldn't afford. The humiliation was unbearable. I made a decision that night. If my parents weren't going to give me the future they promised, I would carve out my own, without them. I moved out 6 months later. I found a tiny apartment with 2 roommates, barely enough space for a bed and desk. I kept grinding, classes at community college during the day, waitressing at night. Every dollar I earned felt like a brick I laid on the foundation of my future, not theirs. But even as I worked, the betrayal burned inside me. I kept asking myself, how could they do this to their own child? The question haunted me for weeks. How could they do this to their own child? I kept replaying every family moment in my head, every time my parents smiled and told me they wanted the best for me. The images turned sour, corrupted by betrayal. But one evening, while searching for old documents I needed for my financial aid forms, I stumbled upon something that made my blood run cold. At the back of my father's office cabinet, buried under piles of unpaid bills and random papers, was a folder marked college account. My heart leapt. Maybe this was proof the money was still there? Maybe they had exaggerated? But when I opened it, I found not bank statements of a healthy fund, but withdrawal slips. Page after page, money siphoned out, thousands at a time. Some were marked for renovations, others for a vacation, but one set of withdrawals stood out. Large sums had been wired to a joint account, Not my parents, but one belonging to my uncle. Why would my college fund money end up in his account? I couldn't hold back. That night at dinner, I asked them straight out. Why was my college fund sent to Uncle Mark's account? My father dropped his fork. My mother's face went pale. Then, instead of an explanation, came another attack. Why were you snooping in our files? My mom snapped. That's none of your business. None of my business? That money was mine. I shouted. My dad slammed his fist on the table. We did what we had to do for this family. Don't you dare question me. But I wasn't a child anymore, and their intimidation no longer worked. I demanded the truth. After an hour of shouting and tears, the ugly story came out. Years earlier, my uncle had gotten into serious trouble with gambling debt. Loan sharks were threatening him. My parents, instead of letting him face the consequences, had quietly drained my college fund to bail him out. They thought they were saving the family. They told themselves I was young. I'd understand one day. I could always take loans. But in reality, they had chosen my uncle's mistakes over my future. I sat there in silence, numb, as they defended their choices. Family comes first. My mother kept repeating, like a broken record. But I wasn't family to them. Not really. I was their backup plan, their excuse, their sacrificial lamb. When I confronted my uncle, he admitted everything, but with zero remorse. Yeah, they helped me out, he said casually. So what? You'll survive. You're smart. You'll make it without that money. The audacity made me sick. My parents had stripped me of my future, and my uncle acted like it was nothing. Worse, when word spread among extended family, I became the villain. Cousins whispered that I was greedy and disrespectful. My aunt told me to stop making your parents feel bad. They did what they had to do. The isolation was brutal. I realized I couldn't rely on family at all. By the time my first semester at community college ended, I cut off contact. I stopped answering calls. I blocked them on social media. I told myself if they valued me so little, I didn't owe them my presence. It wasn't easy. Birthdays passed without calls. Holidays felt hollow. But every time I doubted myself, I remembered the betrayal. Some nights I cried until my pillow was soaked. Other nights, I felt fierce determination. If they thought I couldn't build a future without their help, I'd prove them wrong. I doubled down on work. I picked up tutoring gigs. I learned how to budget every cent slowly, painfully. I saved enough to transfer to a state university. Not Ivy League, not the dream school I once envisioned, but mine. The first day I walked onto that campus, books in my arms, tuition paid by me, I felt a pride that money couldn't buy. Every step I took was one they couldn't take away. But the scars remained. Years later, just as I was about to graduate, I got a letter in the mail. It was from my parents. I almost threw it away, but curiosity won. Inside was a rambling apology. They wrote that they never meant to hurt me, that they thought they were doing the right thing, that they hoped I'd forgive them. Enclosed was a check, $5,000, a pathetic fraction of what they had taken. I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to rip it up. Another part wanted to cash it out of spite. In the end, I put it in a drawer. I never cashed it. That money wasn't going to fix the years of betrayal. The lesson. Now, when people ask me about my parents, I don't tell them the whole story. I just say, we're not close. But inside, I carry the lesson they taught me. Trust is priceless, and once broken, it can never truly be restored. I built my life without them. I earned my degree. I carved out a future they tried to steal. Do I wish things were different? Of course. But in a twisted way, their betrayal forced me to become stronger, more independent, more determined than I ever thought possible. Because sometimes, the people who are supposed to protect you are the very ones you need to protect yourself from. Reckoning, boundaries, and a future I own. Freedom is quiet at first. There's no triumphant soundtrack when you set a boundary and keep it. There's just morning air and the sense that the person you promised to protect, your future self, can finally breathe. I didn't cash the check. Instead, I opened a new account no one else could touch and named the savings bucket Reclamation. Every deposit was a ritual. This is mine. I worked at the university library while I searched for my first full-time job, and in the evenings I volunteered with a scholarship nonprofit, helping seniors write essays about grit that didn't turn pain into spectacle. One night the nonprofit asked me to sit on a panel, Money, Family, and Boundaries. I almost said no, but I pictured the kid version of me in the back row, pretending not to cry over acceptance letters she couldn't afford. I wrote a speech that didn't use my parents' names, but did use my own. I ended with, "You are not ungrateful for protecting your future. You are not disloyal for refusing to finance someone else's mistakes. Love without boundaries is a debt with no due date." Someone recorded it. It traveled farther than I expected. Then the phone started ringing. My mother's voicemail was a familiar performance. Sobs, a plea to talk like family. When I didn't answer, she sent an email. "We are ready to heal." Inside was a script. "We were scared. We made mistakes," plus an invitation to Sunday dinner. I forwarded the email to my therapist. She replied, "What does healing look like for you?" So I made a list. I wanted acknowledgement, not PR. I wanted the truth recorded, not drowned in gravy. I wanted a repayment plan, symbolic maybe, but real enough to teach the math of consequences. And I wanted my uncle out of the frame. When Sunday came, I didn't go to their house. I booked a room at the public library. Neutral ground. Fluorescent lights. My parents arrived together. My mother's perfume hit first, sharp and expensive, and my father's shoulders were squared for war. "I'm not here to fight," I said. "I'm here for clarity and terms." I slid a printed agenda across the table. We started with acknowledgement. "You took money that was mine to fund your lifestyle and to bail out Uncle Mark," I said. "You told me there was a fund and lied when it was gone." Silence turned the room into a courtroom. "We were drowning," my father muttered. "Your uncle made his choices," I said. "You made yours. Say the sentence." My mother bristled. "We're sorry." "The sentence," I repeated. She stared at the table. "We took your college fund." The words fell like a broken plate. I slid the next page forward, a repayment plan. Not the full amount. The law and time had done their rounding. But monthly ACH to a 529 for my future child, or if I never had one, to a scholarship named for my grandparents. 10 years. Automatic drafts. No contact needed. They could choose restitution or distance. Both options protected me. My father scoffed. "This is extortion." "No," I said. "This is math with feelings. Accountability when all the sorries are spent." My mother began to cry. The loud, gulping kind that used to flood me with guilt. The urge to comfort her rose like muscle memory. I watched it pass. "You can be sorry and still be responsible," I said. "Both can be true." They left without the paperwork. I didn't chase them. Months passed. I got a job at a student support center that paid enough to move into a small apartment. I learned to cook more than survival meals. I let friends see the mess and didn't apologize. I kept the repayment plan in a folder, not hope. Terms. Then my uncle called. I hadn't blocked him because blocking felt like a gift. "I heard you're talking about the family," he said. "You're making us look bad." "Some things don't need my help to look bad," I said. "And since you called, what does your restitution look like?" He snorted. "You're not getting a dime." "Good," I said. "I'm not collecting. I'm recording." I hung up before he could practice cruelty on me the way he'd practiced debt on everyone else. 2 seasons later, an email arrived from my parents. It was short. "We enrolled in the payment plan with the Scholarship Foundation. 10 years. We used the name you suggested." No punctuation after that. A transaction had replaced a relationship. It wasn't the ending childhood me wanted, but it was the version of repair left standing. I went to the scholarship office the day the first deposit cleared. They printed the Alba and Martin Fund, established to protect first chances. My grandparents' names glowed on the page. I didn't cry. I bought a cinnamon roll, sat on the curb, and let the sugar remind me that sweetness doesn't have to be stolen to be real. I wish I could say this ends in harmony, that my parents learned and my uncle confessed and holidays turned into group therapy with pie. Sometimes closure isn't a door, it's the absence of someone pushing their way in. I keep my phone on Do Not Disturb more than I admit. I answer when I can, and when I can't, I don't. Peace is a practice, not a gift. On the anniversary of my graduation, I gave another talk. A girl in the front row asked, "How did you forgive them?" I told her the closest thing to truth I have. Some days I can, some days I don't try. Forgiveness isn't a bridge I cross to them. It's a bridge I build to myself so I don't drown. That night a deposit notification hit my phone, the second payment into the scholarship. I made tea, opened a notebook labeled Reclamation, and wrote one line, underlined twice. "I will be the last person to steal my future."